uh, what should be the best time for doing this yoga and pranayama, especially in the morning hour, in which time it will be better? And the second is, what should be the duration of this yoga asana? Maybe half an hour, 1 hour, or anything 1.5 hours, something like that. And sir, one more thing. During doing of this yoga asana, the yoga posture, are there any rules to go for the counting, maybe for 3 times or 5 times or something like that? Or there are no some rules? Means any number of counting we may do as per our suitability. Sir, this much.
Thank you, Prasant, for these questions. The best time to do is, of course, early in the morning after evacuation, after the bladder and uh, the rectum are empty. You have emptied both. So, after evacuation, early in the morning. That is the best time. But then one realizes the compulsions of everyday life, and therefore, doing it sometime of the day is better than not doing them at all. And the general principle to go by is that it should be 4 hours after a meal. That again is as a rule of the thumb. But if the meal has been very light, it could be shorter than that. The interval between the practices and the meal could be shorter than 4 hours. That's also possible. If a person has taken, say, an early morning cup of tea with a couple of biscuits, half an hour after that also would be okay. It also depends on the practice. For example, pranayamas can be done after a shorter interval as compared to the asanas. But as a rule of the thumb, 4 hours, safe for any type of practice. And that would mean that if a person has taken, say, breakfast at 8, then before lunch at 12 o'clock, the person can do them. Or if the person finished with lunch by 2 o'clock, then one can do it at 6 in the evening. So all these variations people do have depending on their routine. About the duration of the practice, again, the optimum duration, or you can say the usual duration which is acceptable to most people and within which we can fit in, as you have seen, a fairly comprehensive combination of asanas and pranayamas is 1 hour. So a session is typically 1 hour. But then again, there is no hard and fast rule that it has to be 1 hour. Depending on the time available, the person can reduce it to even as short as about 15 minutes. How one can do it would depend upon, again, in the person and the person's capacity. Because if it's a young person, as I said in the previous session, for that person, a very brief warm-up followed by 8 or 10 rounds of Surya Namaskar, and that followed by 5 minutes of Shavasana. That may be the shortest that that person can have. But if a person can't do Surya Namaskar, then one of the ways to cut down on the time is that after the warm-up that the person needs, one can do, say, one day only the lying down postures, another day only the sitting postures, and the third day only those which have to be done lying down on the tummy. So within 1 week, in 6 days, the person still would have done each of these practices twice. So that is another way of reducing the duration. But what one should not do is to do only one of the postures without its counterpose. So that pair should not be disturbed. So that is the only basic principle. Otherwise, one can omit one set of practices or two sets of practices to, say, sitting, standing, lying down on the tummy, lying down on the back. So any of these can be omitted completely. Another way to reduce the duration would be to reduce the duration for which the posture is held. And that was your third question. That is whether we should hold it till the count of 5 or 10 or what is the. Again, there is no hard and fast rule. It will depend upon two things. One is, of course, the time available. So if you're doing 20 asanas and you try to hold each of them up to a count of 10, you will fall short of time. That is why in these sessions we are holding only up to a count of 5. But then holding up to a count of 5 or 10, all this is for the person who is just beginning or who makes a very serious business out of it. It doesn't have to be. It can be full of joy. And we'll have one of those sessions also in which we will give you a glimpse of that, how it can be done. The duration for which you hold can be timed to music. So you play devotional music while you're doing these practices. So every time there's a change of stanza, you can go to the next phase. So you've done it, you've held the posture for one stanza, next stanza, you are just relaxing between the two asanas. Then in the next one, you are doing the next posture. You can do it with music. You can do it also with the Gita. You play an audio of the Gita, and after every shloka, you go to the next phase. So these are other ways of doing it. So that way, it becomes more of a meditation, uh, or rather, you can say meditation combined with the physical practices. So it doesn't have, you don't have to make too serious a business out of it. So basically, the duration for which you hold a posture would depend upon the time available, and secondly, on your capacity. A beginner can't hold it for very long. With experience, you may be able to hold the posture for half a minute continuously. But certainly, one should not try to sort of feel that the longer I can hold it, the more capable I am, because that has also led to injuries. Some people, have sat in Vajrasan for 1 hour continuously and felt that it is a great achievement, but that is how they have injured their ankles. So one has to be careful about that too. So moderation, moderation in everything. Moderation is the best rule, even in these physical practices.